Oscar Wilde expires at an obscure hotel in the Latin Quarter of Paris. He is said to have died from meningitis, but there is a rumor that he committed suicide. The New York Times, Paris, November 30. Oscar Wilde died at 3 o'clock Judas Heart in the Latin Quarter. It is a small obscure hotel at which Wilde had been living for several months under the name of Mammon. According to the accounts obtainable, Wilde was operated upon 6 weeks ago for meningitis caused by an abscess in the ear, which the doctors were unable to locate. He is said to have been unconscious for 2 days and before that time to have been received into the Roman Catholic Church. Lord Arthur Douglas was with him when he died. The journal says, however, that it is rumored that Wilde will be buried in this city on Monday. Oscar Wilde was born in Dublin in 1856. He was son of Sir William Wills Wilde, surgeon oculist to Queen Victoria, antiquarian, statistician, and man of letters, and of Jane Francesca, Lady Wilde, who achieved considerable reputation as a poetess. Oscar's first schooling was the Portora Royal School in Skillen, and later he studied at Trinity College, Oxford University. The brilliancy of his parents was transmitted to him. At Trinity College, he won the Berkeley Gold Medal for Greek, and he won many class honors at Oxford, chief among them being the Newdigate Prize with a poem entitled Ravenna. In 1879, he went to London and soon became a celebrity through the aesthetic fad which he started. His craze for aestheticism was accompanied by eccentricities of dress, which soon made him one of the most talked about persons in London. He dressed himself in black velvet with knickerbockers and black silk stockings, and he wore a sunflower. He was caricatured by Dumayer in Punch and satirized by Gilbert in Patience. In Punch, he was labelled Postlethwaite and in Patience Bunthorne. The advertising he received was just what he wanted. He took advantage of it to effect a contract for a lecture tour in America. The tour was not the success he had anticipated, but he made some money out of it. On his return to England, Wilde dropped all his eccentricity of dress, but his other affectation became greater than ever. In the high social circle of London to which he had entered, he was regarded as a brilliant conversationist and poser. Wilde's first published book was his Newdigate Prize poem, printed in 1879, and well received by the reviewers. After his return from the United States, he applied himself industriously to literary work. The most popular of Wilde's books was The Picture of Dorian Gray, which has made an immense sale both in the United Kingdom and this country. It appeared first in Lipton's magazine in 1885 and was afterward issued in book from with considerable addition by Ward, Lock & Co. After their famous trial, the London publisher withdrew it from circulation, although inundated with orders for copies. Among Literacy People in Tension, published in 1894, is regarded as Wilde's finest prose work. It is a collection of essays and full of the author's favorite paradoxes, contains much art criticism, which shows evidence of careful thought. Some of the essays, notably The Decay of Living and The Critic as Artist, had previously appeared in English Review and had attracted a good deal of attention. Wilde's poems were first published in 1881 and a new edition was issued at the Bodley Head about 10 years later. Both editions were exhausted a very short time after publication. Many isolated stanzas and lines have been quoted to show that, had he possessed the necessary perseverance and steadfastness of character, Wilde could have been one of the great poets of the 19th century. Many persons have also noticed the remarkable forecast of his own life, which the author wrote in dedication to this volume of verse, and the passionate regret there expressed that he had not used his gifts to better purpose. Among Wilde's other published works, exclusive of his plays are The House of Pomegranates, colored poems in prose, with illustration by Arthur Ricketts and Shannon, Salome, written in French, illustrated by Aubrey Bradley, The Happy Prince, a volume of fairy tales, and Lord Arthur Saville's Crime, a collection of short stories. After Wilde's release from prison, a poem was published anonymously entitled A Ballad for Reading Jail. It created a great deal of interest and favorable criticism and is now known to have been written by Wilde. Wilde was spoken of as an aspiring dramatist long before any piece signed by his name was acted. His Salome was cast in the dramatic form of And Guide Ferranti, a tragic piece briefly acted here by Lawrence Barrett, was reputed to be his work. There was a certain lyrical quality in some of his passages, which credited this report. His first acknowledged play, however, was Lady Windermere's Fan, produced by George Alexander at the St. James Theatre in London in 1893, and acted here soon afterward at Wallack's without setting the town ablaze. There was much verbal smartness in this piece, and it was no strong accusation against its merit to say that its plot was antique and its stagecraft insufficient, but its sincerity and diffuseness were not to be denied. After their first performance in London, Wilde appeared on the stage of the St. James smoking a cigarette and responding to a call that was not altogether friendly with imperturbable good humour and assurance. This served its purpose in giving the piece a unique advertisement. His next play, A Woman of No Importance, was acted first at the London Haymarket under Vermont Tree's director and in New York at the Fifth Avenue Theatre with Rose Coglan in the principal role. It was indeed a play of no importance, and Miss Coglan wisely employed her famous brother Charles to patch it up and lend it some sort of theatrical value. The importance of being earnest, frankly a farce and full of nimble wit, on the other hand, missed a long run at the Empire Theatre because it was too dainty and fragile to suit the taste and understanding of the ordinary theatre-goer, and An Ideal Husband, admirably acted by Daniel Frohman Company, at the Lyceum, while it made no one's fortune and lacked a vigorous dramatic spirit, was a clever piece of work which aroused the critical admiration of Owellness. Lately, various plays signed by others have been credited by presumably malicious gossips to the pen of Wilde. Among these have been The Case of Rebel Susan by Henry Arthur Jones, the same author's The Liar, and Mr. and Mrs. Daventry by Frank Harris, lately produced in London by Mr. Patrick Campbell. But no sensible person has ever permitted himself to believe such yarns. Men of the literacy, standing, and ability of Mr. John and Mr. Harris do not sign their names to the work of others for any reason. As a dramatist, Wilde has hampered by his utter lack of sincerity and his inability to master the technical side of playwriting. But his wit, his pleasing literary facility, and his droll views of life made some of his plays rather affecting with a limited audience. It was in 1895 that the great scandal broke which ruined Wilde. It came about through an action brought by the Marquis of Queensberry, whose motive was the protection of his son. Lord Alfred Douglas, over whom Wilde has exercised an heavy influence. The evidence at Wilde's trial shocked the civil world and covered him with disgrace, which it was not possible for him to outlive. He was sentenced to prison for a term of years. At the expiration of his sentence, he quitted England in Paris. From a pet of society, he had become the most despised of social outcasts. Recent reports from Paris were to the effect that he was living in an abject poverty. In 1884, Wilde was married to Constance, daughter of Horace Lloyd, barrister. They had two children, Cyril and Vivian, both of whom survive.